I know. The world never stops rushing. You probably have 100 reasons to scroll past this video, and I wouldn't blame you. So if you're still here, even for just a few seconds, I truly thank you. I'm sharing this story not to point fingers, but as someone who stayed quiet for too long. Someone who just wants to be heard. Gently. Honestly. I only hope that somewhere in these words, you'll find a small reminder that you are not alone. And if you feel even a whisper of that truth, just leave behind a quiet sign, a soft tap on the like button, to let me know someone's still listening. They say your wedding day is supposed to be the most joyful moment of your life. Mine began that way. I remember the soft lace of my dress brushing against the marble floor, the scent of roses drifting in through the church windows, and the way the morning sun hit the stained glass just right, as if even heaven had RSVP'd. I saw my groom's eyes water the moment I stepped in. Not from nerves, from love. His smile steadied me, reminded me that this day was mine too, until it wasn't. The ceremony moved forward like a well-rehearsed play. Vows exchanged, rings placed, a quiet chuckle from the crowd when I whispered, "Don't drop it." Then came the moment, what should have been the most sacred blessing of all. Father Elric turned toward our parents, beginning with mine. As we join these two in sacred unity, do the parents offer their blessings, both in love and in truth? My father, always diplomatic, gave a short nod. Not warm, not cold, just safe. Then he looked to my mother. She stood, tall, dignified, elegant as ever in her ivory shawl and stiff smile. But instead of a blessing, she said clearly, "I do not." A hush fell over the pews, like a curtain being yanked shut mid-performance. Gasps, the shuffle of fabric. My new in-laws leaned forward, whispering. My fiancé's hand stiffened in mine. "I cannot, in good faith, bless this union," she continued. "Not with the history between us." I didn't blink, didn't breathe, didn't move. Inside, I felt a slow freeze. Not panic, not rage, just a falling away. Like someone had opened a trapdoor beneath my heart. I didn't ask why. I didn't cry. I just looked at her. At the woman who raised me, clothed me, criticized me, and always made sure I never felt fully hers. She didn't look at me. Her eyes locked with the priest instead. Cold, final. Then silence, until Father Elric, who'd remained still through the shock, cleared his throat. He looked pale, hesitant, then said, quiet but steady, "There is a letter." He reached beneath the pulpit and unfolded a sealed envelope. It had her handwriting on it. I recognized the slant. She had written it. He looked at her. She didn't protest. "She asked me to open this only if she refused the blessing in front of witnesses." Gasps again, but this time I felt my heart twitch. Not fall, not break, just shift. I looked at the letter. My name wasn't on it, but somehow I knew it was for me, and it would change everything. Long before my mother refused to bless me at my wedding, she had already been withholding her approval for years. She never yelled. She never slammed doors. She simply mastered the art of subtraction, subtracting warmth from words, subtracting my presence from photos, subtracting herself from my childhood. I remember being 9, winning second place at the district spelling bee. I clutched that certificate like it was gold. She looked down at it, lips pursed, and said, "Second place means you were close, but not quite." Then she folded it in half and left it on the kitchen counter, next to the grocery coupons. When my sister Rachel got a B+ in math, there was ice cream, photos, a framed page on the fridge. When I got straight A's, I got told to stop showing off. Subtle, sharp, surgical. She had a way of undoing me without raising her voice. I remember the summer I painted her an abstract piece, deep blues, warm orange, a burst of gold across the center. I had saved my allowance for the canvas. She glanced at it once and asked, "Is it supposed to be something?" The painting ended up in the garage behind a stack of old blinds. Even Christmases had a pattern. My sister unwrapped glittering boxes, custom shoes, handwritten notes, sometimes even little poems. I got sweaters 2 sizes too big, and price tags still attached. Once, she gave me a microwave cookbook when I was 13. I didn't even have a microwave in my room. When I asked if she got the gifts mixed up, she smiled. "No, dear. That's yours. Practical." It was always practical with me, always distant. Even hugs were calculated. A pat on the back for birthdays, a nod on graduation. But worst of all was when I tried to make her proud. I once stayed after school for months building a presentation on renewable energy for the state science fair. I burned my fingers with the glue gun, practiced my speech in the mirror, even sewed a backdrop out of old bedsheets. She didn't come. She said it was the same night as Rachel's piano recital. Said, "One of you needs to be realistic." I stood on that stage with my trembling index cards and watched the empty seat I had saved for her. I stopped trying after that. I became the daughter who was always around, but never really seen. The extra plate at the table. The one whose name was said only when chores were assigned. The daughter who got good grades, stayed quiet, didn't cause trouble, and still somehow never qualified as easy. She had this way of smiling at me in public, just enough to seem kind. But behind closed doors, I was a project she had never wanted to start. And yet somehow, on my wedding day, I still hoped. Hoped that just once she'd choose me without a condition, without a comparison. But when she stood in that church, elegant and cold, and denied me in front of everyone, I realized something heartbreaking. I hadn't lost her blessing that day. I'd never had it to begin with. I didn't always know something was wrong. When you grow up in silence, in cold shoulders and withheld smiles, you don't notice absence. You normalize it. But then, little things began to unravel the lie. Like the scholarship. Senior year, I had applied to 3 universities, quietly, secretly, because I knew she'd call them delusions. I was accepted to one, a good one, full ride, renewable. I remember standing by the mailbox day after day, waiting for the envelope. It never came. When I finally called the school's admissions office, the woman on the phone was confused. "Your award packet was mailed last month," she said. "We even received a response. You declined." I hadn't declined. I hadn't seen a thing. I asked my mother. She blinked once, then said flatly, "You must have thrown it away with the junk mail." I wanted to believe her. I really did. But something in her tone, it sounded rehearsed. That wasn't the only time. There was the neighbor, Mrs. Ellison, the sweet widow with the creaky porch and a fondness for my banana muffins. A few weeks before I moved out, she stopped me outside. "Shame your phone number changed," she said gently. I didn't understand. "I called on your birthday, left a message. It just rang and rang." I hadn't changed my number. When I told my mother, she smiled and said, "Oh, that old woman probably dialed wrong. She's losing her marbles." But the next day, I checked our family plan. My name was no longer on it. Then there were the missing letters from my father. He left when I was 8. I used to cry at night, rereading the 2 notes he left in my desk drawer. Years later, when I cleaned out the attic, I found a shoebox behind a panel. Inside, birthday cards, notes, envelopes with my name in his handwriting. Every year he had written. None of them ever reached me. I asked my mother once, when I found a postcard with my 10th birthday, circled, and a simple message. "I'm sorry I'm not there, but I'm always thinking of you." She shrugged and said, "He stopped writing years ago." Must have found someone else. I believed her. But now, I didn't. Even Father Elric had tried to tell me once. At Rachel's confirmation, he'd pulled me aside quietly. "You know, not everything said in confession stays buried," he had murmured. I thought he meant something spiritual. I had no idea that years later, he'd be holding a sealed envelope, her envelope, with all the things she didn't say to my face. By then, the doubt had grown legs. It walked beside me into adulthood. It followed me down the aisle on my wedding day. And when she refused to bless me, that doubt finally sat up and spoke. She didn't just ignore me. She erased me. 3 days before my wedding, I received a letter. Not an email, not a text. A real letter. Thick envelope, handwritten address, pressed with the faintest scent of incense. It came from the church. Father Elric's return address in looping blue ink. At first, I thought it was a blessing. A sweet ceremonial note from the man who baptized me, taught my first catechism class, and once gave me a pocket Bible the day I graduated high school. But when I opened it, a chill settled in my chest. Inside was a single sheet of stationery and a folded piece of paper taped shut. The letter read, "This is your mother's sealed confession. She delivered it 2 weeks ago, under the condition that it be opened during the ceremony, but only if she refuses to bless your union. I do not know what it contains, but I believe you have a right to prepare yourself." It wasn't addressed to me, but it was meant for me. The taped note was heavy in my hands. I turned it over. Her initials were scrawled in the corner. E.V. I didn't open it. I couldn't. Instead, I placed it back inside, hands trembling. I didn't know what I feared more, that it contained guilt or that it contained nothing at all. The days leading up to the wedding were filled with tension I couldn't explain. I saw it in the way she adjusted her pearls too tightly, the way she looked past me in every conversation, the way she didn't offer to help with my veil. On the morning of the ceremony, as I stood in the bridal suite, veil in hand, heart split open by silence, I asked her one last time, "Are you proud of me?" She didn't meet my eyes. "I'm proud of the effort," she said, "but some paths aren't meant to be walked twice." I didn't understand what she meant. Not then. Not until the altar. Not until she stood before 100 guests and refused to bless her only daughter. And not until Father Elric slowly unfolded the sealed confession. He cleared his throat, held up the letter, paused, and read aloud the words she wrote in solitude. "If I have refused her blessing, it means I could not lie at the altar of God. Because I've done things she must know if she's to be free of me." The words echoed off marble and bone. Time seemed to stop. The next line would unlock everything, every silence, every missing letter, every bitter half-smile that lingered in my childhood like a ghost. I held my breath, because now the truth was coming, and it had her handwriting all over it. 2 nights before the wedding, we held the rehearsal dinner at the family estate. It was my first time stepping back into that house in years. The air hadn't changed, still sharp with the scent of lemon polish and cold marble floors. Still quiet in all the wrong places. They hadn't moved my childhood photo. The one where Rachel stood in front, her arms wide open, and I stood behind her, half cut off by the frame. Symbolism, I guess. When I walked in, I didn't expect a welcome. Still, I felt the shift in the room. The brief pause in my aunt's smile. The wine glass that froze midair in my uncle's hand. Rachel's eyes flickered over my face, then darted away. But my mother, she smiled, cool, controlled, the same smile she wore at funerals and fundraisers. "You look prepared," she said. I nodded. "I've had time." We said little after that. She floated around the room, radiant and strategic, introducing herself as Mother of the Bride, with a tone that made it sound like a title she didn't want to read. My fiancé whispered later. She looks nervous around you. I didn't answer. I just touched the pearl bracelet on my wrist, the one my grandmother left for me in her will, with a note. She can't take this from you. I wore it like armor. That night, as people toasted and laughed, I moved quietly through the house. In the den, I found my old piano, still dusty, still missing middle C, and then I saw the chair. Her chair, by the fireplace, the one she used to sit in during winter, pretending to read while silently monitoring everything. I sat in it. It didn't feel like hers anymore. At one point, she passed by the doorway. Our eyes met. For a second, just one, I saw it. The crack, the flicker of recognition, that I had returned, that I was no longer the girl who stood in corners, hoping for a glimpse. I was here now. Wearing the dress she said wasn't suited for my frame, holding my head the way she once called defiant, and speaking only when necessary. That was the night I realized I didn't have to ask to belong in this space. I just had to exist in it, fully, unapologetically, and the power in that silence. It was louder than anything she'd ever said to me. The moment Father Elric unfolded the letter, the church changed. The walls felt tighter. The stained glass didn't seem to shine. Even the music, faint and angelic just moments before, seemed to mute itself in reverence. He cleared his throat, eyes heavy, and then he read her words aloud. To whomever is present, if I have refused to bless my daughter's union, it is because I cannot bless what I have long tried to bury. And if you are hearing this, then she deserves to know the truth. Murmurs rippled through the pews. I stood still, frozen, but not afraid. He continued reading. When her father left, he did not abandon her. He tried to take her with him. He wrote, he called, he fought through court, but I refused. Not because she was unworthy, but because she was too much of him. And I could not bear to look at her without seeing the man who left me. My throat tightened. No one in the crowd moved. I intercepted letters. I canceled a scholarship she earned. I gave her phone away to avoid calls. I told relatives she preferred distance, because I thought, if I could make her invisible, I wouldn't have to grieve twice. A gasp. My aunt's hand covered her mouth. Father Elric paused, looked at me, as if asking permission to go on. I nodded once, because I needed this more than I feared it. She did not fail to connect. I cut the threads. She did not isolate herself. I built the walls. I chose Rachel for everything, not because she was better, but because she was safer, easier to mold. She didn't remind me of my own pain. My sister turned sharply toward our mother. I could see it on her face, the beginning of doubt, of betrayal, of shame. I write this because I cannot pretend anymore. She is not lesser. She is not difficult. She is my endearing and my greatest gift. And if she has made it to the altar without me, then she has become everything I was too broken for her to be. Silence. Heavy, breathless silence. No one applauded. No one moved. The only sound was the gentle creak of the pew as someone shifted uncomfortably. Then Father Elric stepped aside. From beneath the altar, he produced a second envelope, smaller, sealed with gold wax. This, he said gently, was left by your grandmother. Also to be opened, should your mother speak against you. I blinked. No one had told me this. Hands trembling, I broke the seal. Inside, a handwritten will. To my granddaughter, the one who stayed soft even when the world was sharp. I leave you the cottage by the lake, the trust I've kept untouched for you, and the music box with the missing key, because you always found harmony in broken things. You are not the forgotten one. You are the chosen one. My knees nearly buckled. This wasn't just a gift. It was validation, recognition, a quiet redemption wrapped in cursive and memory. My mother said nothing, but her silence was louder than ever before. The letter fell silent. The church did not. My aunt whispered harshly into her husband's ear. My cousin looked around, eyes wide like he'd walked into the wrong funeral. Rachel stood motionless, the bouquet in her hands trembling. But my mother, she didn't cry. She didn't run. She simply sat back down, as if sitting could shrink her from what the whole room now knew. I stepped forward, not because I wanted to speak, but because no one else was. My voice was calm, quiet, the kind of quiet you only earn after years of being silenced. I never needed her to be perfect, I said to no one in particular. I just needed her to try. Rachel turned to me, her face tight. You think this makes you special? You think getting the house and a check fixes anything? I don't want the house, I said. And it's not about the check. It's about the years I thought I wasn't enough, when the truth is, I was simply inconvenient. My mother finally raised her eyes to mine. Sharp, unreadable. You don't understand the things I lost, she said, voice low, distant. No, I said, because you made sure I never had a chance to lose anything. You took it first. The priest stood still. No one interrupted. My father shifted in his seat, his usual quiet now curdling into discomfort. You could have said something, I said, turning toward him. You watched all of this happen. He rubbed his hands together, stared at the floor. It wasn't my place to intervene. I smiled bitterly. Number. Just like it wasn't your place to protect me. Rachel stepped forward. I was a kid, she said. They told me you didn't want to come to my recitals, that you didn't want to be included. I looked at her. For the first time, not as a rival, not as the golden one, but as someone who had been fed the same poison, just from a different glass. I never said no, I said softly. I was never even invited. Her eyes glistened. My godmother stood slowly from the third pew. I suspected things, she said quietly. But I didn't push. I didn't want to believe someone could delete a child like that. You didn't delete me, I said, locking eyes with my mother. You buried me alive. Her jaw twitched, but I wasn't done. I still remember the time I stood in the rain outside your salon, waiting for a ride that never came. How you told the school you couldn't pick me up, because Rachel had piano, and there's only so much time in a day. I inhaled deeply. I was always the daughter of your consequences, never the daughter of your care. My grandmother's letter, still in my hand, felt like fire and balm all at once. It wasn't just her legacy I had inherited, it was her courage. And now, I understood why she'd waited until this moment for the truth to be revealed. Because some confrontations don't require shouting. Just finally, being heard. After the reading, the ceremony was suspended. The guests didn't know whether to stay seated or walk out. Even the organist quietly closed his sheet music. I stood at the altar, veil still draped over my shoulder, holding the words of two women, one who broke me and one who left me whole. My mother sat in the front row, her spine perfectly straight, her hands locked in her lap like nothing had happened. But her eyes, they were glass, empty glass, the kind that never reflects warmth. I stepped toward her, slowly. She didn't flinch. Not until I knelt down, not to plead, not to beg, but to see her face at my level. I wanted her to look at me. She didn't. Still, I spoke. You don't need to explain, I said softly. Not anymore. A pause. Because I finally understand something. I don't need to be loved by you, to love myself. She didn't blink, didn't move, but something in her jaw relaxed, like the last grip on a lie had finally loosened. I stood, smoothed the front of my dress, and turned around. Rachel was staring at the floor, clutching her bouquet like it was a question she no longer knew how to ask. I walked to her and gently took her hand. "I'm not angry with you," I whispered. "You only knew what you were told." She shook her head once, a tear slipping down her cheek. "I never knew how lonely you were," she said. "You still don't," I replied, and I walked away. Not from the wedding, not from my groom, but from the silence I had lived inside for far too long. As I passed the pews, some guests looked away. Some nodded, and some wept silently, but no one stopped me. Because they knew. This wasn't an escape. It was an emancipation. Outside the church, the sky had shifted. It wasn't raining, but the clouds hung low, as if holding a breath they'd been saving for years. My fiancé found me by the garden path behind the chapel. He didn't ask what happened. He didn't need to. He just took my hand. "You still want to do this?" he asked. I looked at him, and for the first time in years, my yes wasn't about pleasing anyone. "Yes," I said, "but not in there, not in that story." So we left. No grand send-off, no slow dance, no clinking glasses, just silence and peace. And when I glanced back at the church, I didn't feel guilt or grief, just relief. I wasn't walking away from a family. I was walking toward myself. We married in the garden behind his grandmother's house. It was small, 12 people, no altar, no matching chairs, just fairy lights in trees, mismatched china, and vows whispered under the sky. No one gave me away, because I was never anyone's to give. I built my new life like a careful craftsman, patiently, intentionally. No grand declarations, no social media posts, just quiet days of choosing what I never had. Warmth, stability, belonging, without begging for it. A month after the wedding, I opened the cottage my grandmother left me. It stood by the lake, weathered and still smelling faintly of cedar. The kind of place where silence felt holy, not hostile. I turned it into a retreat for young women, those who had been silenced, overlooked, orphaned by presence rather than absence. We called it the Restoration House. There were no rules about what they had to become, only space for what they already were. One girl, 16, brought a sketchbook filled with portraits of people missing eyes. She said she liked to draw people the way she felt, half seen. I gave her my old paints, the same ones I once used on the painting my mother mocked. She added color, and then eyes. Another guest left a note on the kitchen table after her stay. "This is the first place I've ever heard my own footsteps and felt safe." We grew, slowly, donations, community sponsors, people who believed not in me as a product of pain, but as proof that silence can be transformed into service. Every night, before I turned out the lights in the main cabin, I'd wind the little music box my grandmother left me. It didn't work. Still missing the key. But I kept it on the shelf anyway. A reminder that some broken things still hold beauty. Rachel visited once. She came in late spring, holding an envelope and a long pause between words. "I didn't know what you were building," she said, "but I'd like to help." She now funds scholarships in our father's name. The same father we both lost in different ways. The same father whose postcards I now keep in a box labeled, "Returned." But not forgotten. I never heard from my mother again. But I didn't expect to. Because rebuilding isn't about dragging old bricks into your new house. It's about planting gardens in places that were once left to rot, and watching them bloom. This morning, I stepped outside before the sun fully broke the lake. Mist curled across the water like a slow breath. Birdsong, delicate and uneven, filled the spaces where noise used to live. I walked the garden path barefoot. The stones were cool. The rosemary bloomed. Inside the cottage, the girls were still sleeping. Dreaming, maybe, of futures that no longer felt out of reach. I made tea, lit a candle, turned on the porch light, not because I needed it, but because I knew someone might. The music box still sat on the shelf, still missing a key, still beautiful, just like me. I no longer wait for letters that won't come. I don't rehearse speeches I'll never deliver. I don't chase blessings that were buried years ago under someone else's bitterness. I write my own now. Blessings in every dish I cook, every hand I hold, every name I remember that someone once tried to erase. Sometimes I wonder what my mother tells herself. Whether she believes her silence protected her. Whether she thinks her confession freed me or freed her. But I no longer need her voice to echo inside me, because I have my own, and it is calm and clear and kind. Before I close the door for the night, I whisper something only the trees hear. He didn't leave me money. He left me space to be. And I understand now. That's the kind of inheritance that can't be taken. It can only be lived. The sky above the lake shifts from soft blue to gold. Light touches the edge of the porch like a promise. And the day begins again. Not because it has to, but because it can. Because I did not end at her refusal. I began at my own becoming.